Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Michael White. During the March 12th COVID-19 press conference, Monroe County Health Administrator Penny Caudill announced that any child care and education workers can receive a COVID-19 vaccination at any clinic. She reminded the community of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's definition of fully vaccinated individuals.
Fully vaccinated means that if you took Pfizer or Moderna, which is a 2-dose vaccine, it is 2 weeks following your second dose. And if you're getting Johnson & Johnson vaccine, that's a 1-dose vaccine, and it's 2 weeks following that.
Caudill said that CDC guidance for fully vaccinated people applies only to small gatherings. Vaccinated individuals in public spaces must still maintain a 6-foot distance from others and continue to wear a mask.
If you are fully vaccinated, you can visit other vaccinated people indoors without masks or physical distancing. You can visit indoors with unvaccinated people from a single household without masks or physical distancing if the unvaccinated person is at low risk for severe disease.
Caudill said vaccinated individuals who have been deemed a close contact of someone who is COVID positive would not need to quarantine, but should still monitor for symptoms. IU Health South Central Region President Brian Shockney said that IU Health has administered about 20% of Indiana's vaccinations.
As of March 11th, the IU Health South Central Region has administered 47,335 COVID-19 vaccines at our Bloomington and Paoli clinics. Our Bloomington clinic has given 35,867 of the 37,480 we've received, which is a 95.7% rate of giving the vaccine as we receive it. Overall, IU Health has provided 230,000 plus vaccine at all of our vaccine sites across the state. And as Penny mentioned, with over just 1.1 million total vaccine given in the state, IU Health still accounts for about 20% of all vaccines given in the state of Indiana.
IU Vice President for Engagement, Kirk White, said the IU vaccination clinic will open on March 29th. The Bloomington Redevelopment Commission approved a change order for construction on the Winslow and Henderson Improvements project. During their March 15th meeting, project manager Matt Schmethurst spoke about the cost of the change order.
On this change order, we had 11 items where there was an overrun on the estimated amount on the contract, and those overruns total $27,632.14. We also have 11 items where there was an underrun, and those pay items total $12,477.18. So that would leave us with a contract adjustment, an additional $15,154.96.
Smethurst said the project has included more change orders than usual due to items being added to the project after the construction plan's completion.
The plans for this project were originally drawn up 3 or 4 years ago, but then I can't remember if it was funding issues or what the situation was, but the project was delayed a couple different years. So just changes that occur out there on the street after the plans were drawn also added to a few things that occurred here.
The next Redevelopment Commission meeting will be held on April the 5th. The Bloomington Utility Service Board considered an amendment to the agreement with Black & Veatch Corporation for design revisions to a polyaluminum chloride feed system at the Blucher Pool Wastewater Treatment Plant. Capital Project Manager Dan Hudson spoke about the agreement during their March 15th meeting.
This agreement is for engineering consulting work on the improvements to the chemical feed system of Blucher Pool. It's an increase from a not to exceed amount of $88,936 to a new not to exceed amount of $153,326. This increase is caused by the expansion of scope of work to the original design for the polyaluminum chloride system.
The Utilities Board unanimously approved the amendment. During their March 16th meeting, the Bloomington Board of Public Works approved an extension to allow restaurant seating encroachments along Kirkwood Avenue. Operations Manager Michael Large said full street use for businesses and restaurants would be allowed through the month of June.
We've come to a conclusion that at the end of June, the bollards would come back out to allow for full street usage again. The Bloomington Fire Chief was on both calls today, and it was his suggestion as well that those tents, once the emergency order from the state comes in for the COVID relief package to be stopped, as far as the emergency state is right now, the tents would have to come down immediately, is what he's thinking. The city would be at the purview to allow them to stay up for 30 days past that end date of the emergency order. But with all that being said, and with the inclusion of these additional days, we feel that this is going to allow the businesses to continue operation as they have in the past successfully, and at the same time allow us to have control of the right-of-way.
Board member Kyla Cox-Deckard questioned the city's ability to restrict the public right-of-way. Large said state orders determine how long the restriction could occur.
Primarily the structures that they're placing on the right-of-way, such as the tents, or even the domes that are outside of Uptown. Any type of structure made of that material requires a variance from our fire marshal. And what the fire chief was saying today is that even in those circumstances, the state fire marshal, once that emergency order is gone, they can make you push those temporary structures down. So we believe that by implementing this closure, the way, and I will say this also, in the 100 block, we have compromised with local businesses, primarily CVS, because they're going to start having a vaccine clinic there. We are only going to close half of that block. So at the alley cut there, behind the bookstore, we are going to place vehicle resistant barriers that will allow that half block to function just as it has previously. We're not going to utilize the bollards at the intersection of Kirkwood and Washington this time.
Large said reconsideration could extend the seating encroachments if the state order is still in place after June. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
Let's talk about sex.
What is consent?
And what's not?
Consent is based on choice.
Consent is active, not passive.
Consent is giving permission without feeling pressure.
What is not consent?
Silence.
Passed out.
Intoxicated.
Fear.
It is not consent.
God consent?
Ask.
Sex without consent is a crime. Only yes means yes.
And welcome back to CATSweek. Bloomington City Council considered an amendment to the Bloomington Municipal Code regarding water rate adjustments. At the Council's March 17th meeting, Director of Utilities, Vic Kelson, described how water rates affected services and projects.
When we go and do a rate case, our sales really don't increase very much from one year to the next. What that means is that once the rates are set, we will get approximately the same amount of money every year. The way we do our budgeting, we budget every bit of our anticipated revenues, personnel, supplies, contract services, and debt service. Those are all budgeted for at budget time, as you know. Any remaining revenue or cash on hand is designated as extensions and replacements, and we use that for capital improvements and various replacements. But what happens is, over time, the personnel, the supplies, contract service will tend to increase with inflation. But the other thing, and what that does is, since the revenues are flat, E&R tends to go down as we go along. And if you go long enough without doing a rate case, you get to the point where you start scavenging from other operations or simply not replacing things because you don't have any E&R money left over.
Kelson said the last water rate case was implemented in 2016. He said all City of Bloomington utility functions are paid for by customer water bills and that the water main replacement project was most in need of funding.
We have over 430 miles of pipe. We can replace about 2 miles a year. That's more than a 200-year replacement schedule. Water pipe service life is typically about 75 to 100 years, and we're trying to get to the point where we're doing a 100-year replacement schedule. And this has got several components. One is that we want to do more of the work in-house, which saves costs for using contractors. But That's why we think we can, if we go up to ultimately about $3 million per year, we should be able to get close to the 100-year replacement schedule that we're shooting for.
Kelson mentioned 6 other large utilities projects and said the required revenue increase to complete the projects was 22.2%. He said the utilities department would like to move to a cost of service operation.
Basically, the idea is each customer class, whether that's the wholesale customers or irrigation customers or residential customers, are paying what it costs to provide the service to that particular category of customer. Right now, our overall pricing covers the cost of operations, but our rates for the various classes are inconsistent with cost of service pricing. And we do wish to take steps to establish a cost of service-based pricing model, which is what the IURC wishes for us to do as well.
Kelson said cost of service would be implemented in 2 phases, the first occurring in 2022 and the next in 2024, and that no customer class would see more than a 20% increase in each phase. He reported the overall increases for each customer class.
There will be an overall increase for residential for metered sales of 21.7%. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Almost 33% for the commercial, governmental, interdepartmental, and of course that would also include the industrial customers, who would only go up 44% instead of 50%. Wholesale customers would go up 33.1%. Indiana University would be 39.7%, and irrigation would be 20% steps to get them up for a total increase of 44%.
Kelson said continuous small increases mitigate the chance of one large rate increase in later years. He said the average customer would see only a $3 to $4 increase. The City Council unanimously approved the amendment. Monroe County Commissioners Administrator Angela Purdy presented a grant to improve court security technology during the Commissioners' March 17th meeting.
One of the things is digital signage, and that signage is going to provide room assignments, hearing times, announcements, public notices, and directions to the public when they're coming into the Justice Building. In my mind, I envision much like what you see at an airport that gives you the directions as to go. So that's what I see in my mind as part of the digital signage. They're also going to get some additional flat screen TVs. Some of the courtrooms did not have the flat screen, and they found that the flat screen is very helpful, especially during a pandemic, for Zoom hearings and the ability to display exhibits as opposed to passing them around the courtroom. And then the last thing that they're going to be able to get, and this will be for all 10 courtrooms, is document cameras. And that actually allows the Counsel of Record and any pro se litigants to present pictures, documents, medical records to the court and do so on those big screen TVs. And again, that eliminates the need to pass around documents.
Commissioner Lee Jones said digital signage would provide visitors with direction upon entry to the building. Bloomington Chamber of Commerce member Jim Shelton said the grant would also benefit the court-appointed special advocates for children.
This will make things much easier to find out which courtroom to go to. I've wandered around there trying to find somebody to ask because they don't always end up in the same place. And then also it'll make things safer and more transparent in the courtroom. So thank you very much for doing this.
The commissioners unanimously approved the state grant. The Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees approved final design plans for their new library branch. Architect Christine Matthew spoke about the final design revisions during their March 17th meeting.
The building exterior is composed of split-face limestone that you see. That's the elevator area, the base of the atrium stair, and that same use of stone, natural stone material from this area wraps around the building and shows up at various key points on the elevations.
Matthews said the exterior of the new building also includes composite metal panels and curtain walls. She also explained how the forest surrounding the building inspired their interior design.
So the finishes that you see over here behind you are intended to be drawing on the natural colors and also organic forms. So that the carpet, you can, when you have a chance, maybe afterwards, you can take a look. But the doors in the building are all natural maple hardwood veneer. We have a vinyl plank flooring that ties in with that color scheme and are wood-like in their appearance. We have the carpets, which bring in some of the natural colors, sort of a limey, yellowy green mixed with grays as a way of bringing in some natural colors. We also use a terracotta color. For instance, on the board to the right, you can see the children's area. The children's program room has the terracotta vinyl sheet flooring, which is here. And then the main carpet in the children's area is the same as what is in the rest of the collections area, but it has a green theme, whereas the carpet in the collections area has a yellowy lime green.
Matthew said the project projection remains within the $12 million overall budget. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
And welcome back to CATSweek. During the Bloomington Board of Zoning Appeals meeting on March 18th, Bloomington planner Ryan Robling requested a variance to build a fence for 1358 East Mercedes Drive. He said the proposed fence would exceed the allowable height.
The petitioners are proposing to construct an 8-foot-tall fence intended to protect their currently existing food garden plot from animals. The proposed fence will run along a portion of the western property line, north of the south property line, 6 feet from the eastern property line, and about even with the southern wall of the primary structure to the north. 9 feet of the proposed fence along the eastern property line will be forward of the front building setback along South Allendale Drive. The entire fence is proposed to feature voids and solids and be of open construction, as you can see here on the right.
Robling said the Unified Development Ordinance allows fence height to exceed the 4-foot limit if it is used to omit animals from food gardens. He said the proposed fence did not meet setback requirements, but would not impact community welfare.
No injury is found with the requested variance. The fence is located well outside the vision clearance triangle of the intersection at East Mercedes and South Allendale. The fence will also feature open design, allowing for visibility from the fence, between the fence sidewalk and the street and the house. So the use and value of the surrounding area are not expected to be substantially affected. The property is currently developed with a single-family dwelling, which will continue after the variance. The portion of the fence which will require a variance is not adjacent and does not abut a property. And the food garden plots and fences designed to protect those are not uncommon in R2 parcels.
Petitioner Kelly Conaway said the fence would be of an open field type to avoid visual obstacles for drivers. The board unanimously approved the variance. The Bloomington Environmental Commission discussed creating a new Bloomington Environmental Quality Indicators document during their March 18th meeting. Environmental planner Linda Thompson said the commission is required to track Bloomington's environmental status.
The very first one was that I have in my possession is from 1994. And it looks like this. It basically goes through a set of indices and, what it talks about the population and growth and energy and water consumption, solid waste management. In this one, it talked about PCBs because that was a very big issue in the past. Soil erosion and siltation, water resources, wildlife, and the natural areas. And so it has been updated periodically, 94, 97, 2001, and lately, the last time it was updated was just updated digitally, and not all of the sectors were in fact updated.
Thompson said the Environmental Commission would also work on updating the Bloomington Environmental Action Plan. She said the goals and policies must be reviewed.
We don't have to really rewrite the whole thing. We just have to go back and look at the goals and policies and see, is this still a reasonable goal? Should the city be thinking about, X percentage of CO2 output by such and such date? Should we change that number? Should we, what could we update here?
Thompson said the Bloomington Sustainability Action Plan mirrors much of the Environmental Action Plan. However, she said the Environmental Action Plan gathers environmental quality indicators which were necessary to create goals in the Sustainable Action Plan. The Monroe County Economic Development Commission approved a bond application for Allied Affordable Housing for a senior living development in Ellettsville. Petitioner James Crawford spoke about the site development during their March 18th meeting.
It's 111 existing units, 50 new units to be constructed on Matthews Drive in Ellettsville. The bonds are required part of the financing for this project is low-income housing tax credits, which are awarded by the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority. In order for them to give these 4% credits to the project, which the partnership will sell to an investor, will buy those credits. And in this case, it's Senair is going to buy those credits. And that gets equity into the project. In order for ICDA to grant those credits, at least 50% of the cost of the land and buildings has to be paid for with tax-exempt bonds that have an allocation of the bond volume from the state.
Crawford said the closing is expected for April. Petitioner Ivan Delgadillo said some of the existing units are in Steinsville. County Attorney Jeff Cockrell said the bond would not cause any negative ramifications for the county. And that's all for CATSweek. Thank you once again for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Michael White.